Welcome to the Registered Investment Advisor Podcast, where financial services marketing expert Seth Greene interviews experts, executives, and top producers to share can't-miss tips on how they successfully manage their financial service firms, grow their businesses, create great relationships, and influence the industry. And now, here's your host, Seth Greene.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by John Sabis of FOXO and FOXO Technologies. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Seth. Glad to be here.
You are up to some super interesting cutting edge stuff. Tell everybody a little bit about what FOXO is.
I'm glad you think so. We are basically infusing molecular biotechnology into the life insurance industry, and we think that's pretty darn freaking cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, for us lay people, what is molecular biotechnology?
Yeah, molecular biotechnology is everything you need to know and everything you don't know. Probably the last thing most of us remember was seventh grade biology, this thing called genomics. But there's been a little thing called the genomic revolution going on. It's really allowing us to look much deeper into our biology functions and how we understand how it all works. And that's it in a nutshell. CRISPR, there's all sorts of things going on. So, yeah.
Okay, so what does FOXO do, let's say, on a daily basis that apply, and how are you applying it to the insurance industry?
Yeah, well, that's a mouthful. But, at a high level, at a super high level, I became aware of some science, a particular field of molecular biotechnology, which is called epigenetics, which is distinguished from genetics. And epigenetics, namely the epigenetic clock, is a scientific kind of discovery around how we age. And when you apply for life insurance, the first question is, how old are you, right? That's the biggest determinant in your rate in your class. And so that particular field of science was something I became aware of. And I was ignorant enough to think that it could be used for underwriting. And, turns out I think I'm right, but not exactly how I thought initially. And so at a very high level, what we are doing is we're commercializing epigenetic science to create a saliva-based underwriting protocol that will eliminate or mitigate the need for medical underwriting or blood and urine specimens. And so that's really the big pain point we're seeking to address.
Okay, so obviously that would be a huge impact given, how many life insurance applications there are every year, how many require the visiting nurse to go out or them to go to a facility and get blood and urine samples, and people who don't want to do that. So the saliva-based testing would be then, is that you mail me a tube, I spit in it, send it back?
Yeah, that's certainly one iteration of it. Folks have talked about, this could allow effectively medically underwritten product to be sold, via the mail. And so that would be a big deal. But, look, at the end of the day, we're really about distribution. And, I like to say FOXO is being built by agents for agents, and I've been in front of enough agents to understand the pain point where I would say, well, what is the big pain point? And they're like, underwriting, it's horrible. It's just wrecks. Okay. So, if I could solve that for agents, I was like, okay, I really have a business opportunity here. And then I discovered that the science of epigenetics really can do a better job of predicting, say, a tobacco user than traditional cotinine. And so there you go. And so that was that's been the journey that we've been on.
Okay, so then if you've got a better mousetrap, so to speak, obviously there's other applications just besides insurance underwriting, but let's stick to that one. So then I, as an advisor, I, as an agent, I can't necessarily, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't go to the carrier and say, don't require the blood and urine test. I got this saliva test from FOXO, it's better. And they'll say, who the heck are you? So I would assume, is your first customer then like the carriers and convincing them that this is better?
Yeah, so that's what we've been up to for quite a while, is talking to the carriers about this opportunity to use this technology for their underwriting. And so we've been in discussions with primary carriers and reinsurers for several years now. And we just announced a transaction. FOXO Technologies is going public. It's going to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange later this summer.
Congratulations.
See FOXO Technologies, the investor page for the press release and investor deck. And it's really, really exciting. So with the announcement of this transaction, it's changed those conversations materially. This is happening. And so the question really now is for carriers, do you want to have a courtside seat to the future of your industry, or are you going to be, not even in the stadium? Because this is going to happen. It's not, and I've been talking to carriers. The question is, will advanced technologies like the one I'm describing serve to improve the life insurance industry? And I've just been saying, absolutely, 100%. There are those who say, no, 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 no. And I'm like, okay, well, you can have that part of the world. The rest of us are going to be over here in the future part of the world. And, we can coexist. It's all good. And I'll make one other comment, which is, this same base technology can do a lot to improve healthy longevity. And that's another big thing that we're about. See, we think the life insurance product can have a new consumer value proposition, which is, we've trademarked this, life insurance designed to keep you alive. And so that same base technology platform can really add to the healthy longevity of the consumer, which is really great for the life insurance company. So all of us really collectively should win, properly done, ethically, transparently, and everything else correct. Yeah.
Okay. So absolutely fascinating. So I get, as a consumer, I have a better customer service experience because I don't need to do blood and urine. I can get swabbed on my tongue or however it works, send it off through the mail, and I get my result. And then the underwriting is easier. Now, here is my question about the technology itself. Does it give you more data than, say, a blood and urine test would?
Yeah, well, so here's the news flash for everyone listening. Blood and urine has the same information as saliva. The question is, are you looking at the data? So look, what I like to say is, we're looking at the very same underwriting factors and impairments that life insurance industry does today using what we call traditional clinical assays. But instead of using that microscope that you looked at in 7th grade biology, we're using an electron microscope. And we're looking at we're looking much, much smaller for the very same things. Do you smoke? Do you drink? Are you cardiovascular fit? What's your regular, so all of those same factors. There's really nothing from an underwriting perspective that we're proposing to do differently.
Okay, so it's a better experience for the consumer. Now, you talked about life insurance that keeps you alive. Are you detecting things sooner than would get detected in blood and urine? I get that the saliva-based test is more pleasant for me as a consumer. How does it improve my longevity? And then how does it benefit the life insurance company, other than the fact that they don't have to require blood and urine tests and it's faster?
Sure. First, the one thing we're going to measure, and folks are going to see this very soon in FOXO Life. So we bought our own insurance carrier because we were so tired of talking to carriers and to no avail. So we bought our own little carrier, and we're about to commercialize, again, with the closing of this transaction, the FOXO Life Insurance Company. And so we're ready to go with some amazing digital term products that will include the FOXO Longevity Report. And inside that report, what we are focused on from a core consumer experience is biological aging. And that's measured with the epigenetic clock discovered at UCLA by Dr. Steve Horvath. And your measure of biological aging is an insight to how you're doing relative to your overall mortality profile. So that's a really interesting new measure. And then the other part of it, and what our mission is making people aware of how their decisions, impact their own health and wellness. I think the first thing we think about is, you can't unknow anything. And once you learn that you have more control over your own mortality, that leads to hopefully better or more responsible decision making.
Or at least you can't claim that you're ignorant anymore and you didn't know the cigarettes were going to kill you.
Exactly. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is that, we expect as well that FOXO Longevity Report will have proprietary measures of epigenetic wellness. For example, we call it an indulgence score. So how much has your potential tobacco or other usage of things, alcohol or otherwise, impacting that biological aging score? So that will be in there as well. A few other really interesting measures. Over time, that content will expand, not only our own content, but other folks that are, and I'll give you the personal example for myself. Now, this is genetics. This is a different science, but genetics. Look, we've got genetic risk screening for risk of disease. We've had that available for a long time. And my own personal example of that is I found out I've got what's called MSH6. That's a genetic mutation for what's called Lynch syndrome and an increased risk of colon cancer. Okay, so how did I find that out? Well, my brother was diagnosed with colon cancer when he's 46, 4 years before what? We get our traditional colonoscopy. Well, I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, if you have Lynch syndrome, if you have MSH6, you need to get your first colonoscopy at age 30, maybe even a little younger, not at age 50. And so this is just another example of how we can, by bringing molecular health and wellness inside of life insurance, to keep people alive longer and healthier, just simply by screening for the risk of colon cancer. You get that colonoscopy really early. That's a win.
That is incredible, because if I think back to the number of times I bought life insurance so far in my career as a producer, bought it for myself, kept buying policies, never once did I get any report back. And if they sent me like a blood test result, I wouldn't know how to read it. I'd have to make an appointment, take it to my doctor, hope he knew what he was talking about when he got to the point. So I love that at the very least, the consumer's getting that longevity report and that analysis. Are you going to sell that analysis separate from with a life insurance application? Like, can I just go buy it having nothing to do with life insurance, or do I have to apply for insurance to get it right now?
You got to come and get the life insurance.
Well, I was buying it from you anyway, but.
Yep. I've been unwilling to unbundle that. I mean, again, our business use case is really for this industry to modernize it with, again, modern molecular biotechnology and progressive thinking, in terms of what it can and should do for the consumer. And then again, for the agents, do we evolve that conversation, not just from financial protection in case of mortality and or investments, but how do we impact healthy longevity to your family? Your legacy is created while you're alive. And so if we can get agents now, and that's a big part of what we intend to do, is how to get that conversation to evolve and move forward as a new value proposition of the product, the agent, the role of the entire industry as a social good. And that's what we're we're jacked about.
I was going to say, that is a beautiful thing. So put me down as a life insurance customer, put me down as someone interested in buying shares, although you're not making an investment pitch to our audience, obviously, all disclaimers aside. And we got to have a separate conversation about how we get your message to our financial advisors. Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
Oh man, I just love everything what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm growing. I mean, it's either what do they say? You're either growing or you're not. And so I've been growing intellectually. I'm not a PhD, so I've learned this, but it's so fun. And I like to say this is my Everest. I've got a big challenge ahead, but I've got an amazing team behind me, and it's just so damn exciting because I just know it's going to happen.
And you will literally save lives.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of hardcore cutting edge science behind this. Talk a little bit about the inspiration for it. How did it get started?
Yeah, I'm a financial services entrepreneur. I found myself on what I call the island of lost life insurance. It's the secondary market of life insurance, and in that industry, they care a lot about predicting how long people live.
Yep.
And so I got real frustrated with how they were doing that, and I said, well, there's got to be a better way. And that journey led me to Dr. Steve Horvath's lab at UCLA with this epigenetic clock. And I said, let me understand this right. Do people's epigenetic clock who are aging faster die sooner? He's like, yeah, 100%. I'm like, okay, well, have you ever heard of the thing called the life insurance industry? He goes, no, what's that? I'm like, oh, what's this little business that builds products around predicting how long they're going to live? And he's like, oh, that's a really great idea. I'm like, oh, okay, well, great. And I said, and Steve Horvath just joined Altos Labs. That's the Bezos funded longevity company. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Tony Robbins and Pierre Diamandis just came out with a new book. I mean, longevity is the thing, right? I mean, we live in this thing called the biological century right now. And that is this maturation of DNA sequencing technology at a really low cost, coupled with AI and machine learning tools. That's the thing that's making all of this real. And I know that firsthand because I saw us able to acquire these machine learning tools, and all of a sudden, like, our business just went, boop, we had it. We're like, oh my God, those are the epigenetic biomarkers. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway.
That's okay. I love the references. Yeah, Tony sent me his book 2 days ago. I just started diving in and couldn't put it down.
Lifespan,
Yes.
David Sinclair, Lifespan, David Sinclair's book. Highly recommend that one. That's a great book. He's all about epigenetics and biological aging. So, sorry, Horvath. The last thing with Horvath was, I go, so Steve, you're trying to keep people alive longer, right? Longevity. And he's like, yeah. I go, well, the inverse is that you learn what people die from. He's like, yep. I'm like, so things like tobacco? He goes, oh yeah, I could tell you how much someone smoked, when they smoked last, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, that's interesting because after male, female, the next question is, do you smoke or not? Now, I figure the industry's got this one nailed, right? Because they'd have to, you'd think, right? But cotinine actually is a pretty crappy test if you haven't smoked in the last day and a half. So Shazam, there you go.
Wow. So does that hypothetically mean on the insurance rates, does that mean if my biological age is significantly lower than my epigenetic age, my insurance premium should be cheaper than if, let's say, I'm 46, but my age says I'm 66 because I'm not taking good care of myself and abusing my body?
You got it. So your chronological age, if you're chronologically 50 and you're biologically 60, yeah, there's probably something going on there that is indicative of, I'll call it accelerated biological aging, which is another word towards closer to all-cause mortality. Vice versa, chronologically 50 and biologically 30, as measured by this clock, yeah, you probably should get a discount.
That's awesome. I think what you're doing is incredible. I'd love to be a part of it. For our folks watching and listening who want to learn more, where is the best place for us to send them?
FOXOtechnologies.com, Seth. And I really appreciate your interest and enthusiasm. We need support. It's a big challenge. And so the more of us who understand this and know this and get behind us and support us, the faster it's all going to happen. So thank you.
Awesome. This has been Seth Greene with John Sabis of FOXOtechnologies.com. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it. Anytime.
Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.